Hi, good morning. My name's Baz Kinder and I'm from Wellington PPM. So thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy diaries this morning to have a look at Microsoft Project Server 2010 and specifically to discover why Gartner rates it as #1. So the agenda for today, we'll be having a very quick look at the evolution of Microsoft Project. We'll then have a look at the Gartner report, PPM Market Scope 2011, where we see how Project Server was rated, and we'll see some of the quotes from the Gartner report as well. Moving on, we'll have a look at some of the most common business pain points that tend to exist in organizations prior to deploying a tool such as Project Server, and then we'll have a look at how Project Server could actually help overcome a lot of those issues. Then I'll provide you with an overview of the solution set. After that, we'll delve into the live demo, whereby we will see the benefits of Project Server by user type. We'll talk very briefly then about hosted Project Server, so it is available as software as a service, and I'll outline what some of the benefits are associated with that. Towards the end, we'll have a look at how you would go about deploying Project Server, what our typical deployment approach is, and I'll talk briefly about our deployment package, which is called PPM in a Box. And last but not least, I will explain who Wellington are. So, the evolution of Microsoft Project and where we are with Microsoft Project Server 2010. So the desktop scheduling tool was released back in 1987, and at that time it was primarily geared towards the use of individual project managers who could build up their plans, do some very simple reporting and so on. But as organizations have grown in complexity, as more and more people have wanted project visibility, and as organizations have recognized project management gaining in maturity as well, Microsoft released Microsoft Project Server 2010. So this is the 5th release of Project Server, so it's quite a mature solution. Prior to that we had 2007, 2003, and there were a couple of versions earlier as well. So it's a very mature solution set, and that's been recognized recently by Gartner. So Gartner every year look at all of the leading PPM solutions available in the marketplace, and they give them a rating. So this year's Market Scope report was released back in June, just earlier this year, and you can see that Microsoft have been given a strong positive rating. Now, the thing that sets Microsoft apart with the other vendors is that all of the other vendors with a strong positive rating only provide their solutions as software as a service. So you're automatically tied into a hosting contract, which you have to pay either monthly or annually. Microsoft do allow you to get Project Server 2010 in a hosted environment, but at the same time, they also allow you to deploy the solution in-house using your own architecture. So some of the key quotes from Gartner, they say the Microsoft Project Server 2010 is a landmark release for Microsoft because it's in this release in which Microsoft includes SharePoint 2010 as the foundation for things such as workflow, document management, and collaboration. Some of these items you will see in action a bit later on. They also go on to say that from a cost point, it's very cost competitive pricing. And if you do go out and compare the pricing of the Microsoft solution to any other vendor out there, you will find that the pricing is indeed very, very competitive. So let's have a look at some of the common business pain points that tend to exist in organizations that can be addressed by Microsoft Project Server 2010. So here are the findings of a report that was published a few years ago by the Center for Business Practices. So they went out and they surveyed a range of organizations ranging from SMEs right the way to large multinationals, and they identified these as being the biggest pain points that these organizations were facing in relation to their projects. And number one, we had inconsistent approaches. Now, from my own experience, I can say that even if an organization does have a project methodology in place, but unless they have some kind of system to help reinforce it, then project managers will probably go off and manage projects however they want to. Whatever they think works best for that day or in that week, they will go about doing. Problem for the organization is that they don't necessarily know that the projects are then being managed in the most efficient way possible. And when people tend to manage inconsistently, they also tend to report back quite inconsistently. So it becomes very hard to compare one project to another project and see what's working well versus what's not working well. And number two, the other biggest pain point was allocating resource. And we've been into many organizations where we've seen some very sophisticated spreadsheets that simply track resources, what they're working on maybe on that day or during that week. Now, these are very, very resource intensive. It takes a lot of manual effort to keep these spreadsheets up to date, and quite often you'll see resource managers emailing these spreadsheets out from one person to another person just to update what they're working on. Spreadsheets like that don't really help answer questions like, have we got enough capacity, or have we got enough of this type of resource to do X number of projects in the next few months. Another big pain point is too many of a wrong project. This is something that we're not really going to look at today, but within Project Server there's functionality that allows you to prioritize projects based on how closely they align to organizational strategy. Another big pain point is project visibility. Many organizations don't have a centralized viewpoint of all of the projects that are currently running in the organization. That is a view that is typically pulled together with a lot of manual effort going into it. And I know from my own experience being a project manager a few years ago that reporting was a big pain point. But it used to take days to compile reports to send up to senior execs. So we'll see how some of these pain points can be addressed by Project Server on the following screen and indeed through the live demo as well. So some of the benefits for decision makers. Well, there's a brand new demand management module within Project Server that helps to streamline all work and project requests as and when they come in. Now, it provides a centralized location where you can see all the demand being placed on your organization, whether that's financial demand or human resource demand. You can also tie that demand management module into the enterprise project type templates. These are EPTs. The notion being that many organizations will run the same type of project again and again. So you can capture all of this information in terms of schedules, resource profiles, specific workflows, depending on the type of project it is, and you can encapsulate all of that information into enterprise project types. We'll see this in action during the live demo in the next few minutes. But what these enterprise project type templates allow you to do is to gain consistency in the approach to projects. Each department can have its own set of templates, and whenever somebody starts a brand new project, they can select which one is most appropriate, and away you go. There's also a portfolio analysis component within Project Server that allows you to prioritize your projects really based on how closely they align to organizational strategy and what kind of return on investment they're going to provide. That's not something that we'll be having a look at today, but if you would like to see that component in action, then let me know and we can set something up separately. Reporting is another big benefit. So you've got the Project Center view, which we'll be seeing in action. That provides great visibility, and it's a great area where you can really report against set standard KPIs, such as standard milestones or general indicators on project health, cost, and so on. The benefits of project managers, are that they end up with an intuitive project management solution through Project Server and Project Professional 2010. Worldwide, there's something like 20 million users of Microsoft Project, so there's a very active ecosystem out there. The other benefit for project managers is the enterprise project type template, which means that every time they start a brand new project, they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They also end up with a centralized area where they can receive task updates and where they can hold all project related information. The life of a project manager is very difficult, and normally this information is really spread out quite thinly in a multitude of areas. The benefits for team members is that they can use very familiar looking tools to collaborate and report status with. They also have live visibility of all their allocated work, which allows them to self-manage their work, and again, we'll be seeing this in action shortly. The benefits for resource managers, well, they can start doing things such as skills-based resource management. So quite often organizations will group their resources by job title, whether that's analyst, developer, and what have you. So resource managers can group these as generic resources, and it makes it very easy for these resource managers then to put in named resources when they're building up the resource plans for projects, and we'll see that in action shortly. This also then allows them to start assessing demand. They can see what the resource demand profile looks like over the coming months, and they can see if there are going to be any shortfalls. The benefits for IT are that they end up with a recognized Microsoft architecture. So an overview now of the Microsoft Project 2010 solution set itself. So centrally, you've got Microsoft Project Server 2010. That really acts as a central repository for all project-related information, whether that's your project plans, anything project-related, it's held centrally within Project Server 2010. Now, on a day-to-day basis, most people will interact with Project Server using what's known as Project Web App, shortened down to PWA. Now, the beauty of this is that depending on what group you belong to, whether you're an executive, project manager, resource manager, team member, you all go to exactly the same URL, but thanks to security trimming, you can actually control and limit what people see or what they can actually do within Project Server as well. If you're a full-time project manager, then you probably will continue using or start using Project Professional 2010. And whilst you can do some light project editing in PWA, if you want to start doing things like advanced dependencies between tasks and so on, then you do really need to use Project Professional 2010. You can also integrate Project Server 2010 with other Microsoft solutions such as Microsoft Office, Dynamics, Exchange Server, and Visual Studio Team Foundation Server 2010. You can also integrate with other line of business systems, so whether you have your own finance solutions in place, ERP solutions, there will be ways in which you can integrate Project Server with those systems. More of a detailed breakdown into Project Server itself. So what you see here are that there are two major components that make a Project Server. You've got this component up here which is concerned with top-down portfolio management. To be completely honest, and many organizations who deploy Project Server will probably never use this component because you need to be quite mature to actually deploy it. But this component is where you have your demand management module. It's where projects can be proposed. It's where business cases for projects can be built up. And it's ultimately where you then prioritize your project portfolio to determine which projects will be approved and which ones will be rejected. Then you have a bottom of project management execution module, which is where you do your day-to-day project scheduling, resource management, reporting, time reporting, and so on. And this is really the component that we will be focusing in on today during the live demo itself. So here is a very typical project portfolio management process using Project Server. Now before I go into it, let me just explain the Project Server is a very versatile solution and it can really be configured in any which way you like. You can keep it as simple as you want, or you can make it quite complex. And this general rundown here is actually quite complex, and it assumes that you're going to use all of the functionality of Project Server. But let me run you through this. So at the start of a project request would be created using an enterprise project type template, which of course includes a generic schedule, typical workflow for that kind of project, and any appropriate documents that you might need. So once you've done that, you would build up your project business case. Then the projects with the highest benefit, those that are going to deliver the highest return on investment, will be reviewed and approved. That's in the select phase of the project. In the plan phase of the project, once the project's been selected, the project manager can then finalize the project schedule, finalize any resource management requirements, and anything else to do with the project before it's actually pushed out. So once the project is saved and published, the work is then pushed out to team members. Those team members can manage their workload and report on progress. Team members can also access a project site. So every time a project is created and published, you've got the option of creating what is called a project site that holds all of the project documentation. It's where you would hold the project risk logs, issue logs, and so forth. Senior managers at any time during that process can start accessing real-time dashboards, and line managers can review resource needs and work allocation on an ongoing basis. So that brings me on now to the live demo. So what you're going to see first is the benefits for the project managers. So we'll see a brand new project being created using an enterprise project type template, and we'll see that project being then resourced using the build team function. So if I switch over now to the demo environment, here we go. By the way, just before I get into this, if anybody does have any questions on Project Server or anything that I'm discussing, then please use the Q&A panel at the top of your screen to ask any questions. I will probably leave all the questions right until the end of the presentation itself, which will be in approximately 20 minutes. So let me give you a very quick rundown of Project Web App first of all. So what you're seeing right now is the home page. Every time you log in, you always see a quick access tool menu. So at the moment I can see my work, projects, where I can see central visibility of all the projects, the resource center, reporting, and I can see all the server settings as well. I'm currently logged in as an administrator. If I had logged in, let's say as a team member, you might say that the only option I can actually see is my work. All of the other options would be invisible. In the central area of your screen, you see a reminder section. So it tells you if you've got any new tasks assigned to you. You can also get email alerts on this. You can also integrate with Exchange, meaning that anytime any new tasks are assigned, they go straight away into the person's task list in Outlook. I've also got a timesheets reminder, approval, status report, and it also tells me if I've got any active issues or risks assigned to me to look after and report against. Being based on SharePoint, you can also modify this page and you can add web parts. So, the first thing I want to show you is the Project Center itself. So this is where you get centralized visibility of all of your projects in the organization, or certainly projects you're eligible to see. Okay, so here we now see a list of all the projects, and I see some standard KPIs reported against them as well, and a very high level Gantt chart here on the right hand side. Now the beauty of this is that you see various KPIs, but when you roll over them, they tell the story behind them. So if I'm running over these, it's telling me that I'm over cost by 20% or more. This project down here, costs are as planned. This one down here, costs are over by 10% or more. Now you can define whatever KPIs you want to have displayed on this particular page, and you can also determine what formulas would be used to deem whether something's a red indicator, amber indicator, or whether something's on target. You can also set up multiple views. I'm currently looking at the RAG status view. This is something that we've actually configured as part of our PPM in a box deployment package. If I scroll down, you can also set, or you can also view key milestone RAG views as well. So here we see some standard milestones being reported against. So this particular milestone, the plan milestone, is complete. This one here is on track. This one here is over 2 weeks late, and so on. The beauty of this is that rather than just being a static list of projects, if I see something and it looks like it's in trouble, I can actually drill down to get more information on it. So if I drill down to this particular project, I can see a whole raft of red indicators there, meaning that I need to get in touch with the project manager and start finding out what's really going on. Let me now close out. Now, to start a brand new project using an enterprise project type template, all I would do is go to new, and here I'd be presented with a list of all the templates that exist. We've only got a couple in this environment right now. So if I select the software upgrade project template, it brings me up to a project information page. This is essentially a PID. So whatever information you currently collect within your organization at the start of a project, we can replicate that using this kind of electronic form. And you would go through, populate this, and you can also bring up things like drop-down lists for people to select from. I won't on this occasion complete this information because I've already started a brand new project which I'll open up shortly. So here is a project that I opened up earlier on, or created earlier I should say, Cisco Networks deployment. That's been created using a template, and to open it up in project, all I need to do is click on this particular icon here, and here's a project. So this is Project Professional 2010 now, where I've opened up the project and I see a list of all my tasks, duration, start and finish dates, and so forth. And importantly, I see a list of all the generic resources that I have assigned to this project as part of a template. Just before I get into resource management, I don't know how many of you actually seen Project Professional 2010. Many of you might be familiar with older versions such as 2007, 2003. So let me give you a very quick tour. The first thing you'll see that has changed along the top is a ribbon toolbar. So you've now got tabs along the top. So task tab, resource, project, view, and so on. And underneath each one of these tabs, you've got very appropriate options now being presented. It makes navigating around Project Professional 2010 a lot easier, a lot more intuitive. Now, in order to start replacing some of these generic resources with named resources, all I need to do is click on Add Resources and Build Team from Enterprise. So here we go. We've now got a dialog box popping up. And here on the right hand side, we'll see a list of all the resources being assigned to this project as part of a template. So these are generic resources. Tells you which resources are required and how much effort is required from each one of them. What we see here on the left hand side is a list of all the actual resources that exist in the organization. So if I'm now looking for a Cisco security analyst, if I select that generic resource and if I then hit match, it's showing me a list of all the resources within the organization that match that particular skill set. If I click on customize filters, I could also start adding other attributes. I might say I want to add some particular skills that are required as part of this particular task. And here we see a very high level skills matrix. I might say that I need somebody with CCNA accreditation. If I hit apply, you can see that the only person in the organization that matches that is myself. If I just take this away for now and hit apply again, I'll bring up a bigger list. And again, if I select other resources, you might get bigger list popping up. One thing that's not being shown right now is resource availability. If I click show resource availability, for now I'll use the project start and finish date, In the real world, you might want to drill down to exactly when the resource is required, and that way you know that the person's available exactly when you need them. But for now, I'm going to use very high level date ranges. If I hit apply, there we go. We see what the availability is for myself, Sam Cole, and Steve Jenkins. So I've got this type of visibility. I can also go and view some graphs, which I'll do in the next step. But in order to replace this generic resource with a named resource, all I need to do is select the appropriate resource and hit replace, then click OK. So where previously it did say Cisco Security Analyst, it now says Steve Jenkins. Another way in which I can do resource management is through the Team Planner view. So if I select that, it brings up essentially a calendar view, and I see Steve Jenkins and all the other resources assigned to this project. And here on the right hand side in this calendar view, you see all the tasks that have been assigned to them. Now if I roll over any one of these tasks, you'll notice that I get more information. The beauty of this view is rather than just being visual, you can also actually click and drag some of these tasks into other people's calendars. So if I know that Steve is going to be on holiday or if he's going to be off sick, all I need to do is click and drag that task into somebody else's calendar. If I go back to the Gantt chart view now, what I'm going to display is the timeline view now. So I don't know how long many of you spend trying to make Gantt charts, let's say your project schedules, looking a bit more presentable, just to present to somebody or maybe to send out to a client. A brand new feature in Project Professional 2010 is a timeline view. It allows you to select whatever components you want from your schedule, right click, add to timeline. Now we have a visual representation of the schedule in a slightly more digestible manner than the Gantt chart itself. You can also come into this and you can start coloring various components. So if you know something's slightly behind schedule, color it red. I think you get the idea, but this is generally where I tend to get carried away, so I'll stop. But the beauty of this particular feature is that you can actually copy the timeline to copy and paste into an email presentation, or you can copy as a full-size image. And that you can then send on to a client or to whoever is requesting project information within your organization. So that was a very quick look at Project Professional 2010. Let me just show you one other view for resources. I'm just going to close this down, close Project Professional. So another view that's available is a resource center itself. And here I'm presented with a list of all the resources in my organization. So these are non-generic resources. I can also see below that generic resources. So you can again have multiple views here. Rather than viewing all of the generic resources generally, I might say that I want to see all resources by role. So if I do that, and if as a resource manager I want to know what my resource availability is looking like over the coming months for, let's say, project managers, I can select all the project managers. I can go into things such as the resource availability view, which will open up a graph. The view that we're looking at right now is assignment work by resource. That's indicating what resources are working on. The black line here indicates the capacity line. So what this view is suggesting is that between this timeline, we've got people not really working on anything very significant, and we've got a lot of people sitting on the bench. If I scroll down, you can also get more of a breakdown as to what people are working on in those weeks or those months. The other view that I quite like here is remaining availability. If I click on that, this is based on a standard calendar within the organization. In fact, what I might do is I might break this down into weeks, and I might reduce the time frame as well. So now I can see on a weekly basis what people are working on. In fact, how much availability they have. You can see the Martin here, he's been paid, but he's not really doing very much at all. He's got a lot of availability. Sophie is working on items. If I scroll down, you'll be able to see what Sophie is working on specifically, which project she's involved with, and so forth. So we can see that she's working on the CAD version 5 pilot project and how many hours she's been assigned per week to that project. Okay, let me just go back to the presentation very quickly. So we had a very quick look at what the benefits were for project managers. Let's now have a look at what the benefits are for team members. So we'll see if we centralize my tasks area. We'll see how they can work with real-time information. And I'll show you the project site in action as well. So going back to the demo. Now, as a team member, when I log in, I'm obviously reminded here under tasks that I have new tasks assigned to me. Like I mentioned before, you can also set up email alerts, and you can also send work straight into people's task lists into Outlook. In fact, there's even a brand new iPhone app that's available, and very soon there'll be a Windows Phone application that will allow team members to receive their task updates in their phones, and they can provide updates back to the project manager using their phones as well. You can already to some extent do that even without an app, as long as you have Outlook synchronization. So as a team member, if I want to see what I'm working on, I can either click here or I can go to my work, which is what I'll do right now. So here I'm presented with the tasks view, and I can see which tasks I've been assigned to work on. So design work. So the project I'm working on is the finance package version 4 upgrade, and this is the task that I'm working on during this particular time frame. And you can see here in the calendar view on the left, on the right hand side, what the planned hours are for me on a daily basis. And this is where I would come and put in my actuals, and this is where I can send status updates back to the project manager. If I get to the timesheet view, I get a very similar view, and let me just get a correct period. One of the things you can actually do is if you decide that you want to use timesheets within your organization, you can activate what's called a single entry mode, meaning that rather than go to tasks, which is the view that you just saw, people would automatically just come to the timesheet view. And again, in a similar fashion, you see which project I'm involved with, what task I've been assigned, and again, what the planned hours are, and what the actual hours are that I would have to come in and update. I can also add other items to this, such as overtime and so forth, and non-billable time. But if I want to get more information on the task itself, I can simply click on the task name. So here we see a detailed page on the task itself. General details, recent task changes, attachments. So if there are any specific attachments that I need to review as part of a task that I'm working on, so if I'm a developer, I might have some kind of requirements document, and that information will be available for me here. There's also a contact section, so I can see who the project manager is, the approval manager is, and who's been assigned to work on this task. Is it just me or is it somebody else as well? And I also have visibility of who is involved in the project itself. Now, one of the areas that I really like on this page is related assignments. So what tasks need to finish before I can start working on my task? When do they start? When do they finish? What is their current status? And who is working on them? But importantly, I can also see what the impact would be if I didn't finish my work on time. What is the follow-on task? When does it need to start? And who's working on it? There's also a note section down here. So let's say a project manager assigned me a task and said that I've given you 2 days to do it. I might know from previous experience that that task typically takes 6 days. I could come here, voice my frustrations, and send that update back to the project manager to review and maybe update the project plan itself. So if I go back, what I would need to do if I do want to provide any updates is simply click into the relevant field, put in how many hours I've done, and then you'll see that it says that it needs to be saved. I would save it and then send the status update on the selected tasks back to the project manager. That project manager can then go into the approval center, where they would see visibility of all the updates that have been provided. There are none in this example, but I could then preview the updates before accepting them or rejecting them. So another thing that I want to show you today is the project site itself. So as I mentioned earlier, every time you start a brand new project, you've got the option of creating what is called a project site. So if I select any project now, then click on project site, we'll see what a project site looks like. So this is a typical project site. This is actually one that we've customized for our PPM in a box deployment. And again, on the left hand side, you see a quick access menu. So there's a project document library there. You have subcategories within there, and you can pretty much upload any type of document you like. And if you are setting a particular template, then within that template, you might say that this particular type of template needs to contain these particular project documents for people to complete. And this project site would be pre-populated with those generic documents. This is where you have your issue logs, risk logs, any other logs you like. And it's where team members can also come together to discuss anything at all on the project. There's various options that we've actually disabled, such as a blog and a wiki page. But this page, again, based on SharePoint, you can really customize it to whatever extent you like. But let me close out of that for now. Going back to the slide deck again. So we've seen what the benefits are for team members. The benefits for executives, visibility of projects, and reporting business intelligence. Well, we've already covered what benefits are in terms of visibility of projects. Again, that was delivered through the project center view that you see right now. You can have multiple views set up. You can group projects by program, by which customer they're being delivered for. There's any number of views really you can set up, and that is highly configurable. The other benefit for executives are reports. So we've got a number of reports that we include within our PPM in a Box deployment package. We've got a cost dashboard, work dashboard, and so on. I've got a few of them open now, but these are based on performance points. So whilst you can take all of the project information straight into Excel and start to slice and dice, we've created a number of dashboards that are available at the click of a button. So this is the cost dashboard. What are the most expensive projects that we're currently working on? And we have a couple identified here. Being based on performance point, you can actually drill down into these projects using this interface as well. So here you see a breakdown of how you could slice and dice that particular project. Another way in which you can do it is through something called a decomposition tree, which is great for when you're going into presentations. You may be asked a question that you don't really know the answer to, but you've got the ability at your fingertips really to slice and dice the information on the fly. So here we see the Cisco Networks project. If I click onto that now, again, you're presented with a very similar list to what you saw earlier. You might say, right, that's the project. What is contributing towards that cost? So let's see a list of all the resources involved in that project. So here we see all the resources and what the respective costs are. You might say you want to then drill down into the developer resource and see what tasks have been assigned to that particular resource. I think you get the idea, and that would really branch out then into a bigger tree. So closing out, so that was one dashboard that we've included within our PPM in a Box config. Another one is a risk dashboard, which I have to say I really like. So this one's showing you the top 10 most risky projects. So every time you create a brand new risk in your risk log, you're giving it a probability score and an impact score. So what we're doing here is we're basically multiplying those two figures and giving projects a risk score overall. So the top 10 most risky projects versus the least risky. And you might say projects that don't really appear here might not have had a comprehensive risk analysis completed on them. We've also got a resource dashboard. So what are the actuals remaining in baseline work? Who are the most worked resources versus the most underworked? And thankfully there are none. We've also got an improved budget variance dashboard. So which projects are over budget, which ones are under budget, and so forth. So that really concludes the live demo for today. Going back to the presentation, so we've seen what the benefits are for executives, visibility of projects, reporting, and so forth. If you want to see a more detailed breakdown of Project Server, if there's a specific area that you want to really drill down into, then let me know, and we can cover that in a one-on-one demo. Moving on then, we can also provide Project Server 2010 as software as a service. The benefits are that you can deploy it very rapidly. Typically it takes 5 working days to get the environment set up in a vanilla format. You're very flexible in terms of what you can do with the environment. You can stay hosted. You're only ever on a 30-day contract, so at any point you could bring the environment in-house should you want to. It's a very reliable environment. We've got a dedicated data center that runs the environment. And there's a dedicated team of specialists that looks after the environment. It's a very secure environment as well. If you are thinking of going with software as a service and you have an in-house security team and they would like to run penetration testing or what have you on the environment, then that's something that we can set up. And we also have a heap of documents really that document the security of a hosted environment, and I'd be happy to send that out and share that with you as well. It's a very cost-effective environment, and typically we find that a lot of clients, when they look to now run pilots or initially roll this out, they will go with a hosted environment because more cost effective in the sense that you don't have to go out and buy hardware. You don't have to run out and purchase any of the licenses. You can rent the hardware and all of the licenses or some of the licenses. And again, that kind of relates back to various hosting options and pricing. So that is an option that's available. So what now? Now, typically when we start thinking about deploying Project Server, or when we start talking to organizations about deploying Project Server, we ask them to really identify the pain points initially. What areas of project management are you looking to improve? What are your key business drivers? And what is your end goal? Where do you want to get to with Project Server? Once we know all of that, we can help you define a roadmap for deploying Project Server, and quite often that is a phased deployment. We might say in phase 1 we will look to address issues that you have around project consistency, visibility and resource management. A phase 2 deployment might include the rollout of portfolio analysis or the rollout of more reporting. The thing to remember with Project Server is that it is not just a software deployment project. It's very much a business change project. It's going to change the way in which people work, and that needs to be taken into account, and relates back to the previous point that we recommend a phased deployment, roll out to small areas, get some quick wins, then roll out to bigger departments. We now see a project management maturity model, and what Project Server helps you to do is increase the project management maturity within your organization. Now, quite often when we start talking to organizations, they tend to be at a level 1 or a level 2. They might have some process identified, but still project scheduling is quite unpredictable and it's quite inconsistent, and project costs, and in terms of how they come in, can be quite unpredictable as well. By the time we roll out Project Server, we would be looking to take you straight away to a level 3, so that all of your processes are documented and that they're integrated into Project Server. Project success should generally become a lot more predictable, and your costs and schedule should be greatly improved. Now, it's really up to you as an organization which level you want to get to. Do you want to get to a level 4 or a level 5? Whatever level you want to get to, we as an organization can help you get there. Moving on, so we've got a deployment package called PPM in a Box. So what is it? So PPM in a Box is a fixed price 12-day deployment package for Microsoft Project Server 2010. What is included is installation locally to your environment, or we can provide you with free hosting for up to 50 users for a period of 60 days, that's 2 months. Rather than giving you a vanilla install of Project Server 2010, we give you one that's already been part configured. So we give you an enhanced Project Server 2010 configuration. That includes all of the reports that I showed you previously, some of the enhanced views that I showed you in terms of standard KPI reporting and milestone reporting. We give you an improved project site design and more. Now, this is a 12-day package. If we were to do everything from scratch, you'd probably be looking at 20 to 25 days. So this package makes it a lot more cost effective. Within the package, we also run a series of requirements workshops. We help you do process design, and we then customize Project Server to match your processes. So yes, it is part configured, but it is still then configured to match your processes. Within the deployment, we also include administrator training, user training, and we give you a series of training videos which really focus in on team member training. So how do you update your timesheets, how do you submit updates back to the project manager, and so forth. Once we've deployed for you, we then come back about 2 months later to do a post-deployment review. We look at how you've been using it, and we look at ways in which you can improve your use of it and how you would look at maybe rolling it out further. And we do offer a optional support package as well. So who are Wellington? We've been around as a company since 1995. We're a specialist project management company. We've got 3 divisions: consultancy, training and recruitment. On the consultancy side, we are Microsoft Gold certified partners with your project and portfolio management competency. We also employ a range of senior level project and program managers who essentially get into organizations and help them to improve their project management. So if an organization wants assistance in maybe managing a large program, or if they want us to go in and set up a PMO environment, that is something that we can do. On the training side, we are Microsoft Silver certified partners with a learning competency. We also are PMI accredited, and very soon we will be APM accredited. And we run both MS project training and more generalist project management training as well. On the recruitment side, we have an in-house recruitment agency, and we help organizations to recruit either on a permanent or a contract basis for a whole heap of roles in project management. Based on Windsor, but we have clients UK-wide, and our clients are very wide-ranging, as you will see on this slide now. So some of the most recent deployments that we've done are for MenCap, Domestic and General, and for Roche Pharmaceuticals. Now, even though all of these clients are very diverse, the only thing that they all have in common is that they all run projects. Moving on then, we've got some client quotes. And by the way, if you would like a copy of a slide deck that I've used today, then let me know and I'll send it out to you. But I'll leave it on there just for a moment. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy diaries this morning. It's much appreciated. You can get further information on Project Server 2010 on our website, which is WellingtonePPM.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, you can also follow us at #ProjectServerUK. Right now, I'll open up the floor for any questions you might have.